Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss news that two hardline unionist groups in Northern Ireland think they have a plan to force Boris Johnson to trigger Article 16. In this case, triggering Article 16 being code for suspending much of the Northern Ireland Protocol rather than actually triggering Article 16, which doesn't do what they think it does. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So first of all, I think an obligatory explanation again of what Article 16 is and is not. Brexiteers have for some time now tried to suggest that Article 16 of the Northern Ireland Protocol allows the UK to unilaterally suspend the trade barriers between Britain and Northern Ireland based on nothing more than the fact that it is causing difficulties. In pushing this mistaken belief, they often refer to this. This is from the Article 16. If the application of this protocol leads to serious economic, societal or environmental difficulties that are liable to persist or to diversions of trade, the Union or the United Kingdom may unilaterally take appropriate safeguard measures. And then they call suspending the protocol safeguard measures. But there are a couple of problems with this interpretation. The first is that there are no problems with trade between Britain and Northern Ireland, which have been an unexpected consequence of the Northern Ireland Protocol. Indeed, what problems exist are largely caused by the fact the protocol is not being properly implemented. If we had the infrastructure in place and the staff in place and everything like that to handle the relatively small number of checks required, because way fewer checks required than, say, between Britain and France, then a lot of the issues evaporate. You still have trade friction, can't help that. What we have here is a self-fulfilling prophecy. The people in charge do not provide the resources necessary for businesses in Britain to be able to trade easily with customers in Northern Ireland. Then they claim businesses in Britain are struggling to trade easily with customers in Northern Ireland. Didn't see that coming. But that aside, there is a second, much easier to point out problem with this assertion. Article 16 itself, not very large. It's basically 3 paragraphs, which links to a couple more in an appendix. Twice, it clearly states that the measures have to be such that they will least disturb the functioning of the protocol. That's what it says. It says it twice as well, to be absolutely clear. So the notion that Article 16 actually allows you to suspend the protocol when Article 16 clearly states that you have to make sure that whatever measures you put in place keep the protocol functioning is a nonsense. What Article 16 actually does is allow one side to say we've got a problem here, and the other side has to agree to discuss the problem for a full month before anything at all happens. In fact, I've seen some trade experts say they wouldn't mind seeing the UK government triggering Article 16 just so that the public can see how boring it would be. They would announce their triggering Article 16, there would be a month of talks, which would be utterly pointless because the talks are going on anyway without anyone having to trigger anything. So anyway, what's this DUP plan then? Well, according to a report in the Belfast Telegraph, it's largely a unionist paper traditionally, but I don't know these days how its readership is split between unionists and nationalists. But according to their report, the DUP are in close talks with the ERG, which is the hard Brexit infiltrators of the Conservative Party who spearheaded Brexit in the first place and have now basically taken over the party. The plan is to pressure Johnson into triggering Article 16 by promising to re-elect a First Minister to the Northern Ireland Assembly if his action is sufficiently robust as they would see it. Now, I'm going to guess what this means is that they don't actually want Johnson just to trigger Article 16 in the boring way. They want him to suspend the Irish sea checks and just claim he's using Article 16 to do so. Now, the promise of getting Stormont back is obviously not going to be enough to persuade Johnson to commit political suicide and earn the ire of both the United States and the European Union. Stormont is dissolving anyway very soon for the elections. So now, the carrot involved here seems to be the promise of a better chance of the DUP retaining the First Minister position. Because as things stand, polling would suggest that come May, Sinn Féin would become the largest party in Stormont, after the elections. That would mean a nationalist First Minister in Northern Ireland. The argument goes that this would make a border poll in Northern Ireland more likely and could lead to Irish unification. I mean, yes, that's what your brainless Brexit created the conditions for, yes. But this is also the DUP's worst nightmare. It's also not something the Conservatives particularly want to see, at least not publicly. So here's the plan as I understand it. If Johnson agrees to act over the Northern Ireland Protocol in the way that these dinosaur deniers want, then they believe it will show the unionist community in Northern Ireland that the DUP have got what it takes to achieve results. At the Stormont elections, they will attract a large share of the reinvigorated unionist vote, retain their place as the Assembly's largest party, and maintain a unionist First Minister. Hurrah! Now, I don't know how likely that is. It may be utterly ridiculous, it may be possible, I don't know, doesn't matter. I don't need to comment on that, because like with everything else the Conservatives have been doing for years now, it's about perception more than realism. The report also said that Johnson is believed to already want to suspend the protocol, according to the meetings with the ERG. Now, I could point out here that Johnson is well known for telling people what they want to hear. That the ERG are saying, well, we've been meeting with Boris Johnson, we don't have to persuade him that that we should suspend the protocol because he's fully seized to the idea, doesn't mean he is. He could just be trying to say that to get rid of them out of his office. But there is a small problem with this plan that even they accept. Even assuming that everyone involved believes that it could work when it comes to changing the current momentum of the Stormont elections this year, I said that triggering Article 16 would in reality be boring. However, it wouldn't actually be that boring when you consider the international reaction. I refer to Exhibit a press release from the United States House Foreign Affairs Committee last year, vocal and cross-party condemnation of the threats to invoke Article 16. It doesn't just say that the House of Representatives would be a little bit upset if bits of the protocol are suspended, but specifically cites the use of Article 16. The implication being that even if the UK government triggers Article 16 as a distraction measure in the boring way, which actually wouldn't work for the plan because the DUP don't want that, and with this month of talks that's happening anyway, the US may still flip its lid. Well, who cares, you may ask? Well, Brexiteers in the Conservative Party care. Prominent ERG members who are involved in this plan care, such as Steve Baker. He's been recently pushing the idea that we need to be moving much more closely to the United States and away from other countries, especially in the EU, of course, which is a nonsense suggestion because the United States' geopolitical aims are no longer aligned with our own. We were at one time when the United States was more interested in European security. We have interests around the world, of course, but our major source of threat is in Eastern Europe, as the current potential conflict between Russia and Ukraine highlights. The US is much more concerned with the threat in the Pacific. This was not always the case, but it is now. But never mind that. The point is that the Conservatives want us to get much closer to the United States. That is not going to be achieved by having both the executive and legislature against us. In other words, it's not in the geopolitical interests of Tory Brexiteers that we trigger Article 16 while the United States is dead against it. That is important to remember when it comes to this plan from the DUP and the TUV as well, which is basically a part of the DUP that split away some years ago because the DUP didn't have enough hate in their hearts. So it's essentially a more unreasonable version of the DUP. So what's the solution to this problem? Well, Brandon Lewis, the Northern Ireland Secretary, has apparently been in the United States trying to persuade them that triggering Article 16 in the way that they intend would not harm the Good Friday Agreement. Now, I don't think he's there anymore, and I've not heard anything since, so I'm guessing he didn't really persuade them, but never mind that. Even the ERG do not want to annoy the US, so this is essential. The action the EU would take would be far more serious than the US in actual fact, but the ERG seem to be comfortable with a trade war. They have already committed to crashing our economy. Remember, they wanted us to leave the EU without even a weak agreement. So the fact that the EU could dissolve the trade and cooperation agreement, they don't care, they didn't want it anyway. But this is where their plan is going to falter, because the thing is, Lewis is not going to persuade the United States of the Conservatives' plan for two simple reasons. First, the legal reality. The UK government chose to be in a different customs and regulatory area to the EU. Not that it matters whose choice it was, but it was ours. By international law, there has to be a customs and regulatory border between these two areas. That border can't be inside Ireland. Everyone is clear on that legal point. So where does it go? I say everyone, the DUP are not, but you know. The treaty that we signed into international law places it in the Irish Sea between Britain and Northern Ireland. Everyone's also clear on that legal point now. The only difference is that the UK government say that they regret this position and they didn't understand their own treaty and they'd like to remove it because we didn't mean to put it there. United States legislators are not going to be fooled by any guff about simply being able to remove a customs and regulatory border without putting it somewhere else, in a way that they can fool ordinary members of the public with. The second is the political reality. The Irish lobby in the United States is both large and powerful. Huge. The Republic of Ireland government has way more useful contacts with Capitol Hill than the Conservatives do, or indeed any British political party. Even if the Conservatives could persuade people in Congress of their position, the lobby would not permit them to side with Westminster on this. So on points of both law and politics, this small problem in the DUP, TUV and ERG plot is actually a pretty big one. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.